what I wanted to do today was share with you some of the things we're doing, which are practical, because in no way I can compete with kind of the inspiring stuff from Steph and Nick. But what I can do is talk to you a little bit about what we're actually doing with social media and how it's working and what isn't working. But then I really wanted to pose some questions to the housing sector about where it goes with this, because I think the future and what we do with it is the most interesting kind of aspect. I mean, I've also picked up some really fantastic insight from the first two speakers. Nick's rock, and you'll be wondering why this is the social media Midland mafia, because we all happen to be from the Midlands. I think that's just chance. But I live in a place called Walsall, which is near Wednesfield. And there is a Facebook page that I discovered called the Birmingham Road Running Man, and it's a guy who wears a deerstalker hat and runs up and down the Birmingham Road come rain or shine, so obviously and so often that local people have put up this website. And I always wondered who this guy was, and now I've seen a photograph of him on the website, and people will put, yeah, saw the Birmingham Road Running Man out there at 6 this morning. So there is a real sense of that social media works on that very local, parochial kind of level. Social media is important for us, isn't it? If you follow Twitter, Shaps is in some bother, I think, today over some allegations. He's got 50-odd thousand followers. There's some allegations that blog out today saying that he's using some kind of bot to attract followers and following people, then dumping them. Not that I would ever do that, but that's what some people apparently do. Shaps and Dromi were having a really interesting, like two heavyweight fighters about a week and a half ago on Twitter, where they were absolutely whacking lumps out of each other on Twitter. So what is happening to politics? What's happening to the kind of the policy campaigning, democratic dialogue thing at the highest levels in this country? Something is sort of changing. But that was all stuff that I've suddenly thought of, having listened to the first two guys. But I've only got a couple of slides. So, my one message to you today is just do it. Go and do some stuff, and I'll put some caveats on that in a moment. We started on a kind of social media journey. We didn't know anything about it at all, really. I didn't, about 18 months ago. We've learned quite a lot. We've learned it with a bit of help from people like Nick, who inspired us and got us up and running. But then we've really just kind of got in there and done some stuff, and I think that is absolutely the best way to do it. Start with some low-risk experiments, work out how it works for yourself, how it can work for your business, and I'll talk about some ways you might want to do that. And then, you know, the best way to learn is to get involved. So if you're going to do one thing differently, and I'm a big believer particularly in terms of what changes as a result of anything we do, what changes as a result of today, I hope you go and do some stuff around social media tomorrow, and that's my one big message. That said, I would ask yourselves why you're doing it, because your chief exec thinks we need to get into social media, or because it's got some benefit to your customers. If so, what? How can it improve your business? So, for example, we know, having tweeted a lot about a data protection conference that we ran with the Chartered Institute of Housing, we know we got 7 inquiries asking us if we would talk to them about providing data protection services to those other organisations. We sell back office services. So we can trace a what changed line from use of social media, from inquiries via Twitter to pitching for business. So it's that kind of thing on a business level and the customer level. So just do it is my message. Nick mentioned the Lana Road Regeneration site, which has got about 150, well, you see it now, 154 likes. Lana Road is in Bexley in East London, and it's a crap high-rise estate, and we're going to knock it down and start again. And we've got some government money to transform 7 high-rises into, we're going to take a vertical community and turn it into houses, yeah. And about 18 months ago, with a bit of help from Nick, Caroline Field, who's just a regen officer, said, well, what would happen if we did our consultation about this regeneration scheme using social media? So we piloted a number of bits and pieces. I'm going to talk mainly about the Facebook one. And what actually happened is, instead of getting, a bit like a small version of the Wensfield thing, instead of getting 3 or 4 people in a dusty community room having a cup of tea, we've now got quite a vibrant online community of around, at any one time, 10 or 15 people on any given week who are talking about issues to do with how's the decant going, how do I get allocated a new house, you know, is it true that you're, you know, moving everybody out at the end of the year, all that sort of stuff. And what we found is that it's been uncomfortable at times, but because Caroline is good at it and she's intuitively able to keep it real and sort of engage with tenants in a very honest and open way, it's worked incredibly well. And the other power that we found is the sort of third-party endorsement piece, which is where people will be complaining to Caroline online on the Facebook site saying Orbit's crap, it's done this, that and the other, and someone else will say, well, hang on a second, that's not fair, actually Orbit helped out with this, or Orbit's doing its best, or whatever. So you get a sense that those people operate as a discrete community within that half a mile square where they live, and they self-moderate to a point. We are no longer in a strictly speaking landlord-tenant adult-child relationship. We're in a much more equitable adult conversational relationship with the people online. And we think, although it's quite early days, I think that there's something really interesting about changing the dynamic of the kind of conversations we're having with our tenants online. What you'll see from here, there's Caroline at the bottom. So people are saying, Stephen Barber saying, Caroline, I wrote to you about something. Then we've got someone else, Tracy Kember, who's another one of our staff, saying, is any resident interested in helping clean up the Dell, which is an area. Tracy's replying, saying, if you've applied for one of our new builds, this is the process. So there's some transactional kind of conversations that go on there. There's then some kind of places to put stuff and information which people can interact with. And here Caroline is talking about an offline event that we held, which was at Morrison's, to look at the plans for the estate, and then taking that conversation online. So we're not saying it's all about online. What we are saying, though, is that it is about online as well. So we're mixing and matching those sort of engagement mechanisms. If you look down here, second post from Caroline is talking about an update saying we're seeking notice of possession on the remaining tenants. So there's information there, but there's engagement. It's a two-way or an all-way open conversation. And what has happened is that the organisation, that is to say Orbit, has had to accept and understand that this is a different kind of conversation. So here we go with someone taking a photo of some rubbish, and it's there, and we need to sort it out. And I don't have a problem with that. If we're supposing that we were on a journey of good to great, you know, we've got a business plan, we say all this stuff publicly about how good we are. Well, are we? Let's test it. Let's test it in the open market. Let's test it in the democratic platform. And if we are good, we've got no problems. So what does happen, though, when you have, for example, as we did, a fire in one of our London tower blocks at Lana Road, and suddenly Inside Housing are on the phone, is we start to get a bit nervous about it. What happened at Orbit, though, when all the residents were saying, you know, this was terrible, there was a fire, Orbit's exposed us to risk and all the rest of it, the local media are all over us. What happens then, though, is the organisation takes a decision. Do we stick with this? Do we ride the storm because we believe it to be right? Or do we collapse it in and shut it all down? And thankfully we stuck with it, we rode that storm, and it passed. And I think there's a lot of credit to the chief exec and the MD of Orbit East and South for, you know, recognising that there were going to be some tough times in this journey. So we're not experts. This is just sort of what we kind of learned in that process. And I'm actually quite proud that we've stuck with it, because it has been difficult and unpleasant at times for us. We've been exposed to lots of criticism. The local media are regularly on there to see what people are moaning about. But again, if we're confident about what we do, why would we try and hide that? So there's a big cultural thing, I think, that we've learned as an organisation. And I was going to finish by kind of leading off that, saying, well, okay, so there's some interesting stuff perhaps about what we did, but what does that actually mean? So to take it from the sort of practical local stuff to as a strategic initiative for a business, what might that mean? And I think there's a really interesting piece about what is resident engagement or involvement about in a world where we don't have to do it unless we want to do it. We're not regulated really anymore. The TSA is gone. The Audit Commission is not looking over our shoulder and making us tick boxes. Whether that was right or wrong, I don't know, but it was certainly a pain in the backside. What is our relationship then with residents in terms of engagement in an unregulated world? It's whatever we and they want it to be. Okay, so there's an opportunity there. The latest STAR survey, you probably know it replaced Status, it found that 63% of our customers are now online. We're digging into the detail on that. It's probably through mobile phones. But the mythology around nobody's got PCs because they're poor or whatever, they're online. More of our customers are online than ever before, and only 1 in 5 of our customers actually went into an office last year. Okay, so 20% went into an office, 63% online. Do the math. We need to sort this out. If we can take 10% of phone calls out of our call centre, that might save us £200,000 a year. So if we up our game in terms of social media and digital platforms, for 50 grand investment, that might save £200,000 a year. If only 1 in 5 people are visiting our office, well, we've got loads of offices and a crap website. It's that kind of, and a lack of interactive social media self-serve options. So one of the things we had a meeting this week about was developing an app. Knowsley Housing Trust have already done it. Well done to them. We're now looking at an iPhone and an Android app where you can pay your rent, etc., etc. What about transparency, things like co-regulation, all that sort of stuff? And I'm a bit obsessed with this, but would housing be up for a bit of TripAdvisor kind of style action? If we think our estates are good, our schemes are good, let's let people rate them. And let's manage their expectations, because when you go on TripAdvisor like I do, if it's a 3-star hotel, people say things like, well, for a 3-star hotel it's pretty good. So this idea that residents understand, and in a more market-led housing world where we might be providing a range of products and services, there's an interesting thing around managing expectations and rating services online in the kind of way that TripAdvisor does it. Nick's talked about transparency. I think he's right, and his phrase about being naked in a goldfish bowl, sort of unpleasant while it was, is an interesting one. We're entering a world where the private sector are in our business. 9, I think, have registered already. Trust me, they will do it cheaper, probably better in certain senses. So, and they will deploy tools they're better at, digital tools, I suspect, than us. The dynamic of where we work and how we work is changing. So there's some question marks about that. The private sector might look at customer decision making in a way that McKinsey's do through something called the loyalty loop, and social media is aligned to that. So it's not about our customers having a transactional relationship with us, it's about an ongoing, deeper, values-led kind of relationship. That means we have to think and behave differently as organisations, and I think social media's got a role to play in that.